Professor Lirox Yaveen stared at the holographic display, his 6 fingers drumming an irritated rhythm on the pristine white surface of his console. The data couldn't be right. It simply couldn't. Yet there it was, floating before his compound eyes in unmistakable blue clarity. Computer, run verification protocol Delta 7 on planetary classification records for Sol 3, he commanded, his voice carrying the distinctive nasal tone of the Arcturian elite. Verification complete, the computer replied in its smooth, genderless voice. Data integrity confirmed at 99.998% reliability. Professor Yaveen leaned back in his adaptive chair, which morphed to accommodate his lanky frame. The galactic archives of Tertius Prime were renowned throughout the 17 settled star systems for their accuracy. Established over 12,000 years ago, they contained meticulous records of every planetary body ever documented by spacefaring civilizations. Paxa, come look at this, Yaveen called to his research assistant, who was cataloging mineral composition statistics at a nearby workstation. Paxa Windbloom, a petite centaurian with vibrant teal skin and a reputation for spotting patterns others missed, glided over. What is it, Professor? You look like you've seen a ghost nebula. According to these records, Earth Sol 3 is the only Class 4 planet in the entire database with 0 registered natural disasters. 0. Not 1. In over 10,000 years of monitoring. Paxa's 4 eyes blinked in rapid succession, a sign of confusion among her species. That's impossible. Class 4 planets are tectonically active by definition. They have to have disasters. Exactly, Yaveen nodded, pulling up a comparison chart. Look at Proxima Centauri b, similar mass, comparable atmospheric composition. 173 major geological events in the past millennium alone. Kepler 442,212. Every single Class 4 planet shows consistent patterns of natural catastrophic events except Earth. Could it be a data entry error? Paxa suggested, already knowing the answer. The system runs 16 redundant verification algorithms, but if it says the data is valid, it's valid. Professor Yaveen stood up, his slender frame towering over his assistant. Which means we've found something unprecedented. 3 days later, Professor Yaveen found himself facing the Academic Council of Tertius Prime, a semicircle of the most distinguished researchers in the galaxy. Most wore expressions ranging from skepticism to outright disbelief. You expect us to believe, began Council Elder Drimnox, her tentacles waving dismissively, that a planet with oceans, active volcanoes, and atmospheric weather systems has never experienced a natural disaster. The claim is absurd on its face. I expect you to believe the data, Elder Nox, Yaveen replied calmly. I've submitted all verification protocols. The anomaly is real, and it demands investigation. Perhaps, offered Professor Jackson Bright, the renowned xenobiologist, the inhabitants possess some advanced technology that prevents such occurrences. A species barely capable of reaching their own satellite? Scoffed another council member. The humans achieved rudimentary space travel less than a century ago. They still use combustion engines for galaxy's sake. Yaveen activated his presentation sphere, projecting a rotating image of Earth in the center of the chamber. Ladies, gentlemen, and non-binary colleagues, I'm not claiming to have answers. I'm requesting resources to find them. If humans have somehow figured out how to prevent natural disasters even at their technological level, that knowledge could be invaluable throughout the galaxy. The council members exchanged glances. Even the skeptics couldn't deny the potential significance of such a discovery. Very well, Professor Yaveen, Elder Nox finally declared. The Council approves the formation of a special research initiative under your leadership. You have 1 standard year to investigate this anomaly and report your findings. Yaveen nodded, already mentally assembling his team. Whatever was happening on Earth, he was going to get to the bottom of it. Thank you, Council members, he said with a slight bow. I promise you, the truth will be worth the investment. Little did he know just how surprising that truth would turn out to be. "I need the best," Professor Yaveen declared, pacing the length of his laboratory while holographic profiles scrolled in the air around him. "The absolute best." Paxa nodded, flicking through candidate files with practiced precision. "I've compiled a short list based on expertise, availability, and security clearance. Shall I display the top recommendations?" "Please do," Yaveen said, stopping to study the 3 profiles that materialized before him. First, Melis Thorne, Paxa announced. Top-ranked data analyst from the Sirius Institute of Advanced Computing. Specializes in pattern recognition and anomaly detection algorithms. She once identified a data manipulation scheme in the Orion Banking Collective by spotting a single misplaced decimal point in a trillion-entry database. The hologram displayed a stern-looking humanoid with silver-flecked skin and eyes that seemed to process everything they saw into numbers. Yaveen nodded appreciatively. Next, Parnak Duwan, Paxa continued, a leading geological expert from the volcanic moons of Jupiter. Literally born inside an active geological hotspot, has personally experienced and studied over 300 major seismic events. If anyone can tell us why Earth isn't having earthquakes, it's him. The image shifted to show a squat, boulder-like being with crystalline protrusions extending from its rocky epidermis. Temperature readings indicated that its core ran at nearly 200 degrees Celsius. And finally, historian Finley Jorex, Paxa concluded, formerly the head archivist of the Temporal Studies Division, expert on pre-contact civilizations, particularly those in the Sol system, wrote the definitive text on Earth's developmental timeline. The third hologram revealed a tall, willowy being with translucent skin through which pulses of bioluminescence traveled in rhythmic patterns. Its age was listed as 412 standard years. "Perfect," Yaveen said, clapping his hands together. "We make the arrangements immediately. Full security protocols, classification level Omega." 3 standard days later, the team assembled in Yaveen's private briefing room, a secure enclave nestled deep within the archives complex. "Thank you all for coming on such short notice," Yaveen began, activating the room's holographic display. A perfect representation of Earth appeared, rotating slowly. "What I'm about to share is classified at the highest levels." Professor Melis Thorne interrupted, her voice carrying the precise cadence typical of data analysts. "With respect, we've all signed the non-disclosure agreements. Perhaps we could skip to the actual anomaly?" Yaveen smiled. He'd chosen well. Very well. Earth, also known as Sol 3, is classified as a Class 4 planet in our galactic system. As you all know, this designation indicates a tectonically active world with liquid water oceans, variable weather patterns, and most importantly, regular natural disaster cycles. Parnak Duwan rumbled, small pebbles cascading from his shoulders as he shifted position. All Class 4 planets experience seismic activity, volcanic eruptions, extreme weather events, and occasional impact events. It's literally part of the definition. Precisely, Yaveen agreed. Yet according to our records, Earth has experienced zero, I repeat, zero natural disasters in over 10,000 years of monitoring. A moment of silence fell over the room. "That's absurd," Finley Jorex finally said, light patterns flashing rapidly across his skin in what Yaveen recognized as the historian's equivalent of a frown. Earth's own historical records document countless natural disasters. The Pompeii eruption, the 1755 Lisbon earthquake, the 2004 Indian Ocean tsunami, the list goes on. "And therein lies our mystery," Yaveen replied, expanding the holographic display to show the official Galactic Archive entry for Earth. According to every sensor, probe, and observation post we've maintained in that system, Earth has never registered a single qualifying natural disaster event. "Data corruption?" Melis suggested, already running calculations in her mind. "Verified 16 ways. The data is accurate." Then perhaps, Parnak rumbled thoughtfully, the humans possess some form of technological intervention we haven't detected. Something that prevents these events from reaching disaster status. Yaveen nodded. That's currently our leading hypothesis. Though how a species that only recently developed digital computing could achieve such a feat remains puzzling. What's the plan then? Finley asked, his curiosity fully engaged. We're going to Earth, Yaveen announced. The Council has authorized a covert observation mission. We'll take the research vessel Inquiring Mind, modified with the latest cloaking technology. Our mission is to observe firsthand what happens when a natural disaster strikes or doesn't strike and determine how the humans are preventing it. Or, Melis added with a hint of skepticism, discover why our monitoring systems have failed to record these events for 10 millennia. Precisely, Yaveen confirmed. We depart in 48 hours. I suggest you all review the mission briefings and Earth acclimatization protocols. And remember, absolute secrecy is paramount. The humans must not know they're being observed. Little did the team suspect that their observation mission would soon turn into much more than they bargained for. The Inquiring Mind slipped into Earth's orbit with the silence of a ghost, its advanced cloaking technology rendering it invisible to the primitive radar systems of the humans below. Professor Yaveen stood on the observation deck, watching the blue-green planet rotating slowly beneath them. Remarkable, he murmured. From up here, it looks so peaceful. Appearances can be deceiving, Finley Jorex commented, joining him at the viewport. According to my historical research, this planet should be experiencing approximately 17 major geological events per standard year, plus dozens of meteorological extremes. Then let's find one, Yaveen decided. Melis, can you tap into their information networks without detection? Melis Thorne was already 3 steps ahead, her silver fingers dancing across multiple holographic interfaces. I've infiltrated their global communication system, they call it the Internet. Quite primitive, but surprisingly functional. I'm scanning news sources for reports of ongoing natural events. Found something, she announced after barely 30 seconds. Seismic activity along something called the San Andreas Fault. Magnitude 6.7 earthquake. It's happening right now. Perfect, Yaveen said. Parnak, your analysis? The rocky geologist had extended specialized sensory tendrils toward the planet. Confirmed. I'm detecting significant crustal displacement. By galactic classification standards, this qualifies as a mid-level disaster event. Significant structural damage to human habitations would be expected. Let's move the ship into position for direct observation, Yaveen ordered. But maintain full cloaking protocols. Hours later, the research team stared in disbelief at the visual feeds from their stealthed observation drones. The earthquake had indeed caused significant damage, collapsed buildings, ruptured water mains, and scattered fires. Yet human emergency response teams were already on site, efficiently extracting survivors, containing hazards, and beginning repairs. Check the Galactic Archive entry, Yaveen instructed Paxa, who had remained aboard as their link to the central database. Has this event registered? After a moment, Paxa's voice came through the communication system. Professor, according to the archives, no qualifying disaster events have occurred on Earth in the past 24 hours. The system shows normal planetary status. Silence fell over the observation deck. That's impossible, Melis finally said. I'm looking at the disaster right now. How could the archives not register it? Perhaps the classification parameters are set incorrectly for Earth, Finley suggested. The parameters are standardized across all Class 4 planets, Yaveen replied, his scientific mind racing through possibilities. Something else is happening here. Over the next 2 local days, the team documented 3 more events that should have qualified as disasters by galactic standards. A massive flood in a region called Southeast Asia, a wildfire consuming vast areas of vegetation. and a severe storm system generating what humans term tornadoes. Yet each time, the archives showed nothing. "I found something," Melis announced on the third day, her voice tight with excitement and concern. "I've been running a trace algorithm on the data transmission pathways between our observation posts near Earth and the central archives." She projected a complex diagram in the air. "See these interruptions? Every time data about a disaster event is transmitted, it gets intercepted before reaching the archives. Someone or something is systematically erasing Earth's disasters from our records." "A conspiracy?" Finley's skin flashed patterns of alarm and intrigue. "Or sabotage," Parnak rumbled. "The question is, who benefits from hiding Earth's natural disaster profile?" Professor Yaveen studied the data pathway analysis, his scientific curiosity now mixed with a growing sense of unease. "This goes beyond mere academic interest now. We're looking at deliberate manipulation of galactic knowledge. We need to dig deeper." "There's one more thing," Melis added hesitantly. "The interception points use access codes with Galactic Council security signatures. Whoever is doing this has extremely high-level clearance." Yaveen's eyes narrowed. "Then we need to be even more careful. From now on, we trust only the evidence of our own observations. Something strange is happening with Earth, and I intend to find out what it is." What none of them realized was that the truth would prove far more surprising than any conspiracy they could imagine. "I need deeper access to human communications," Melis announced, her silver-flecked skin glowing with reflected light from dozens of holographic screens surrounding her workstation. "These public broadcasts aren't giving us the full picture." Professor Yaveen frowned. "The Council protocols explicitly forbid direct interference with pre-integration civilizations." "With respect, Professor," Melis countered, "someone's already interfering by doctoring the archives. We're well past protocol violations at this point." After a moment's hesitation, Yaveen nodded. "Proceed, but with extreme caution. We cannot risk detection." Melis's fingers danced across her interface, executing a series of increasingly sophisticated intrusions into Earth's digital infrastructure. For 3 hours, the team watched in silence as she penetrated deeper and deeper into human communication networks. "I've gained access to something called Emergency Services Communications," she finally announced. These appeared to be the real-time conversations between human disaster response coordinators. She activated the audio feed. The team listened intently to a conversation between human emergency workers responding to yet another earthquake, this one on an island nation called Japan. "Tokyo Command to Fukushima Response Team, what's your status?" crackled a calm voice. "Magnitude 7.2, aftershock just hit. We've got 3 buildings down in the commercial district. Power out in sectors 4 through 9, requesting additional search and rescue units." "Copy that. Deploying reserve teams from Sendai. Expected arrival in 45 minutes. How's your supply situation?" "We're good. Local population has the usual stockpiles. Community centers are already distributing emergency rations, and the neighborhood disaster committees have activated their standard protocols. Same old, same old." The alien researchers exchanged bewildered glances. "Same old, same old?" Finley repeated incredulously. "They're talking about a catastrophic geological event that would devastate most civilizations as if it's routine." "Wait," Parnak rumbled, his crystalline protrusions glowing with excitement. "Cross-reference historical data. How frequently do these seismic events occur in this region?" Finley's skin flashed as he accessed his historical database. "This exact area has experienced major earthquakes in 1891, 1923, 1933, 1944, 1946, 1948, 1952, 1964, 1968, 1978, 1995, 2011, and now 2024. That's extraordinary. Let me access more communications, Maylis said, expanding her search parameters. I'm gathering emergency transmissions from around the planet over the past local month. What followed was a revelation. From every corner of Earth came reports of what should have been civilization-threatening disasters, all handled with remarkable efficiency and most shockingly a sense of routine familiarity. Floodwaters rising in Bangladesh. Local communities had already moved to predetermined high-ground shelters. Wildfire approaching a California town? Residents calmly implemented evacuation plans they had practiced multiple times yearly. Tornado warnings in a region called Tornado Alley? People simply retreated to specialized reinforced rooms in their dwellings, as if it were a minor inconvenience. This is unprecedented, Professor Yaveen whispered, staring at the data compilations. According to these findings, Earth experiences catastrophic events at approximately 400% the rate of comparable Class 4 planets. And yet, Parnak added, their civilization not only survives but continues to develop. Maylis had been unusually quiet, running complex algorithms on her personal datapad. Professor, she said finally, I believe I've solved our mystery. It's not that Earth doesn't have disasters. It's that they don't register as disasters in our classification system. Explain, Yaveen prompted. The Galactic Archive defines a disaster as an event causing significant disruption to planetary civilization, with recovery periods exceeding 1 standard year. But humans, she projected a time-lapse simulation of Earth's disaster responses. Humans have adapted so completely to their volatile environment that their recovery times average just 17.3 days. They've engineered their entire society around rapid disaster response and recovery. Inley's bioluminescent patterns pulsed with dawning comprehension. So the archives aren't being manipulated. The system is working exactly as designed. It's just that by our definition, Earth never experiences actual disasters because they recover too quickly. Look at this, Maylis continued, pulling up human social media feeds. So, here's a human standing in front of his partially collapsed dwelling after an earthquake, making jokes about it. And here humans deliberately traveling toward storm systems to observe them for entertainment. It's their psychology, Finley realized, scanning historical texts. These events have been part of their evolutionary environment for millions of years. What would traumatize other species is simply Tuesday for humans. Yaveen stared at the holographic display of Earth, seeing it with entirely new eyes. They've normalized planetary chaos. What other civilizations would consider apocalyptic, humans consider a mere inconvenience to be managed. That's why there are no disasters in the records, Parnak concluded. The events happen constantly, but by galactic definition, they're not disasters at all. They're just life on Earth. The team fell silent, each contemplating the implications of their discovery. These humans, these seemingly primitive beings, had accomplished something no other species had managed. They had made peace with planetary catastrophe itself. We need to completely revise our understanding of human resilience, Professor Yaveen said finally. This isn't just an academic curiosity anymore. This is something the entire galaxy needs to know about. We need to go deeper, Professor Yaveen announced, pacing the conference room of the inquiring mind. Our remote observations aren't enough. We need direct contact. That violates at least 7 different non-interference protocols, Finley pointed out, though his skin patterns indicated more excitement than concern. I'm authorizing limited field contact under Academic Research Exemption KC-42, Yaveen replied. We'll use the standard anthropological disguise protocols. Our objective is to understand how humans have adapted psychologically to constant catastrophe. 3 days later, disguised as human researchers from a non-existent university, the team made their first direct contact with Earth's inhabitants. Their chosen location, a disaster relief center in a region recovering from what locals called a Category 4 hurricane. "Thank you for meeting with us, Captain Ramirez," Yaveen said, now appearing as a lanky human academic with a slight accent. His translator implant rendered his speech perfectly comprehensible to the human before him. Captain Elena Ramirez, head of the local emergency response team, shrugged casually. "No problem. Always happy to help with research that might improve disaster response. Though I'm not sure what's so interesting about our little operation here." "Little operation?" Parnak rumbled, his rocky form now disguised as a stocky, bearded geologist. "You've coordinated the evacuation of 300,000 people, restored power to 70% of the affected area within 48 hours, and prevented any loss of life from a storm that destroyed 1/5 of your city's structures." Ramirez laughed. "Just doing our job. Nothing special. You should have seen what happened after the big one that hit us back in 21. Now that was a mess. This?" She gestured at the devastation visible through the window. "This is Tuesday." There it was again. That casual dismissal of what should have been a civilization-crippling event. Over the next week, the team conducted interviews with dozens of human disaster responders, community organizers, and ordinary citizens affected by various catastrophes. Everywhere, they found the same inexplicable resilience. "Of course we rebuilt," said a farmer whose entire property had been consumed by floodwaters just 1 month earlier. "What else would we do? The land's still here. We're still here. Life goes on. Do you ever consider relocating to a less hazardous area?" Finley asked a woman whose home sat directly on what humans called the Ring of Fire, a notorious zone of seismic activity. She looked genuinely puzzled. Where would that be, exactly? "Everywhere has something. Tornadoes, hurricanes, blizzards, droughts, earthquakes, pick your poison. You just learn to deal with whatever your region throws at you." Back on the ship, the team compiled their findings. "I've completed the evolutionary analysis," Melis announced, projecting a complex timeline of Earth's development. Unlike most inhabited worlds, Earth has never experienced an extended period of environmental stability. Throughout their entire evolutionary history, humans and their ancestors faced constant planetary upheaval. "That explains a lot," Finley said, his skin glowing with academic excitement. "Where most species evolve in relatively stable environments and then must adapt to occasional disasters, humans evolved alongside disaster itself. It's coded into their DNA. Look at their mythology," he continued, projecting images of ancient human texts. Floods, fires, earthquakes, they don't just feature in their disaster planning. They're foundational to their cultural narratives. Their oldest stories aren't about stability, but about surviving chaos. Professor Yaveen nodded thoughtfully. "And their psychology reflects this. Where other species experience trauma and societal breakdown when faced with environmental catastrophe, humans show remarkable adaptability. They anticipate disaster as inevitable and plan accordingly. Their buildings are designed to withstand repeated damage," Parnak added. "Their communities have layered redundancies in infrastructure. Their governance includes sophisticated disaster response mechanisms at every level. They don't just respond to disasters, they expect them." "And here's the most fascinating part," Melis said, highlighting a section of her analysis. "According to the Galactic Archives classification system, a disaster is defined as an event causing civilization-level collapse or regression. But Earth's civilization never collapses. It bends, adapts, rebuilds, sometimes even improves, but it doesn't break. So Earth has no disasters in the archives," Yaveen concluded, "because by our definition, they never actually experienced disasters. What would qualify as a civilization-ending catastrophe for any other species is, for humans, just an inconvenience to be managed." Finley's skin rippled with patterns of wonder. Their greatest evolutionary adaptation isn't their intelligence or their opposable thumbs. It's their profound psychological resilience. They expect the worst and prepare for it as a matter of course. This changes everything, Professor Yaveen said quietly. If we apply human disaster management principles throughout the galaxy, countless lives could be saved. Their seemingly primitive civilization might actually be more advanced than our own in the ways that truly matter. The professor stared at the blue-green planet rotating below them. They're not oblivious to danger. They're intimately familiar with it. They don't fear catastrophe, they've made peace with it. That's not primitive. That's profound. The Grand Chamber of the Galactic Council fell into stunned silence as Professor Yaveen concluded his presentation. The holographic displays surrounding him showed humans rebuilding cities after earthquakes, constructing homes that floated during floods, and creating fire breaks to redirect wildfires around their communities. In summary, Yaveen said, his voice echoing through the cavernous hall, humans aren't missing from our disaster records because of data corruption or sabotage. They're missing because, by our definition, they don't experience disasters. What would qualify as civilization-ending catastrophes for any other known species are, for humans, routine challenges they've evolved to overcome. Elder Nox's tentacles writhed with agitation. Are you suggesting these primitives have surpassed us in disaster resilience? Not suggesting, Elder. Proving. Yaveen projected a comparative analysis. Humans experience planetary catastrophes at a rate 400% higher than the galactic average for Class 4 planets. Yet their recovery times are 94% faster. No other known species has achieved this level of adaptation. The council erupted into heated debate. We must recruit them immediately, argued Councillor Blentak, a representative from a water world plagued by tidal disasters. Their expertise could save billions across the galaxy. Absolutely not, countered another councillor, his exoskeleton clicking nervously. A species that thrives on chaos? That treats planet-wide destruction as routine? They're too unpredictable, too dangerous. What if they spread? Whispered another. What if they bring their disasters with them? Professor Yaveen waited patiently for the commotion to subside. Counselors, I recommend a cautious approach to integration. Perhaps a limited cultural exchange program too. He was interrupted by an urgent communication. The holographic display shifted to show Paxa, still aboard the inquiring mind in Earth orbit. Professor, she said, her expression a mixture of alarm and confusion, we have a situation. The humans, they're hailing us. That's impossible, Yaveen gasped. Our cloaking technology. Sir, Paxa continued, they're requesting permission to send a representative to our ship. They specifically ask for you by name. The council chamber exploded into chaos. Elder Nox slammed her ceremonial staff, demanding order. Accept their request, Yaveen decided, his scientific curiosity overriding protocol. But maintain all security measures. An hour later, the professor stood in the inquiring mind's reception chamber as a sleek Earth shuttle docked with their vessel. The airlock cycled open to reveal a smiling human woman in a simple gray uniform. Professor Lirox Yaveen, she said without hesitation, extending her hand in what his cultural database identified as a greeting gesture. I'm Admiral Sophia Kwan, Earth Unified Space Command. We've been expecting you. You knew we were here? Yaveen stammered, his composure momentarily shattered. Admiral Kwan's smile widened. Of course. We detected your ship 3 minutes after you entered orbit. Very nice cloaking technology, by the way. Just needs some adjustments to account for gravitational micro-distortions. Yaveen exchanged bewildered glances with his team. But you made no attempt to contact us until now. We thought it best to let you complete your research, the Admiral replied casually. Your observations about our disaster response systems are quite flattering, though not entirely accurate. We still have much to improve. How could you possibly know the content of our research? Melis demanded. Admiral Kwan shrugged. Your data encryption is good, but well, let's just say we've had practice breaking complex codes. Comes with living on a planet that constantly tries to kill you. You get good at solving problems. Why reveal yourselves now? Professor Yaveen asked, his scientific mind already racing with new questions and possibilities. Because your council is currently debating whether to avoid us or recruit us, Admiral Kwan replied matter-of-factly. We'd prefer the latter. Earth is interested in joining the galactic community. We believe we have much to offer and much to learn. She handed Yaveen a small data crystal. This contains our formal request for diplomatic relations, along with some suggestions for disaster mitigation strategies that might benefit your more vulnerable worlds. The professor accepted the crystal, his hand trembling slightly. I don't know what to say. Admiral Kwan's eyes twinkled with mischief. How about saying yes to an invitation? We've been waiting for you to notice us for quite some time. And since you're interested in how we handle planetary catastrophes, would you like to see how we manage asteroid impacts? We've got one scheduled for deflection practice next week. Should be quite the show. Yaveen found himself laughing despite the monumental implications of this first contact. Admiral Kwan, I believe this is the beginning of a most fascinating partnership. Just wait until you see how we handle supervolcanoes, she winked. That's where the real fun begins.